Okay, so it's just after 1 p.m. UK time, Friday, the 21st of June, and I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And that's not what I wanted to share. Just bear with me 1 second. Try again. Okay, that's better. So you should be looking at my trading view chart for Euro US dollar 15 minute. And I'm going to start by saying on Crossfire in the afternoon session, we look at these first four pairs. So it's Euro US, Euro CAD, GBP US, and GBP CAD. Those are the four pairs. If you want to trade Crossfire in the morning, that's 6 a.m. UK time, we trade these four pairs: Euro odd, Euro NZD, GBP odd, and GBP NZD. I also keep an eye on Euro US throughout the day, so sometimes we've seen posting results from Euro US in the morning. So basically, Crossfire, fairly simple strategy. We start on the 15-minute chart and we draw two trend lines. I draw a green trend line above where price is currently. I draw a red trend line below where price is currently, and we wait until this 1 o'clock candle closes at 1:15. So that's in 10 minutes time. We then position those two trend lines accurately, and basically we wait for price to either break above the green trend line, in which case we're looking for buying opportunities, or we wait for price to drop below the red trend line, in which case we're looking for selling opportunities. So we'll come back and place those trend lines accurately. I always look at the news before I start trading. So I look at forexfactory.com, and I can see that at 1:30, so that's in 24 minutes time, at 1:30, there's some Canadian dollar medium impact news and low impact news. So there's four items there. So that can affect both the Canadian dollar and the US dollar because they're very closely linked. But then I noticed that at 2:45, we've got some high impact news on the US dollar. And at 3 o'clock, we've got medium impact and low impact at just after, well, at 3 o'clock exactly. So I'm expecting there might be some small movement for caused by the 1:30 news. I'm really expecting the bigger movement to be at 2:45 and possibly at 3 o'clock, but I'm not really expecting the major move to be at 1:30 today. I'm going to look at my FX, but they have a different perspective on things. They've got the Canadian dollar 1, 2, 3, 4 low impact news items, but they've also got 3 high impact news items for 1:30. So maybe the Canadian dollar will be the one that moves and might also be followed by the US dollar. But again, they've got 2:45 high impact US dollar, 2:45, 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and so on. So remains to be seen when they decide to make their big moves. So going to go back to the chart, and we've got 8 minutes left before the 1 o'clock candle closes. What I'm going to do in a minute is just have a look back at what happened this morning. So I'm going to drop down to the 2-minute chart. You can see that I positioned the trend lines accurately, so that green trend line was a horizontal line because that was the highest point price has been at all day, and this red trend line went from the nearest lower candle and took into account that bottom of that 6 o'clock candle. So that's what it looks like on the 15-minute chart. It's going to sort of dig a little bit deeper on the 2-minute chart and put some indicators on, and then start to analyze this. Now, I didn't actually take any trades this morning, any live trades. So this is just really just back testing, looking back at what happened. I've marked it up, and I have to say that it looks quite impressive. However, that was the beginning of that move was at 8:15, I believe, and the beginning of that move was at 8:30. And if you go back to the news, Forex Factory, you'll see that at 8:15 there was red flag news on the euro. It's just the French, just France rather than the whole of Europe. And there was also some German news, high impact at 8:30. So 8:15 and 8:30, that news caused the movement in price. And to be fair, I wouldn't normally trade around the news, but I did spot this opportunity. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper, make it a little bit bigger so that you can see. And here we are. I'll go back to 6 o'clock, first of all. So if we look at starting here, which was 6 o'clock when we were looking at the 15-minute candle opening, you can see that price very much went sideways. There was no big movements at all in there. And just bear with me 1 second, but just got a message. Okay, so you can probably see that the green trend line and the red trend line intersected. That, in fact, they actually crossed over at that point there. So whilst price was still in what we call no man's land, I wouldn't have considered getting into a trade anyway. The first opportunity I would have considered getting into a trade is when price came below the two trend lines. It was not only below the green trend line, but it was also below the red trend line. And we'd had a recent wave down signal. So I'm looking at that candle there. That's actually, the candle itself is away from the green trend line, which I always look for a gap. But looking down at the water atta, that wasn't, just extend that. I'm really looking for a situation where the black explosion line is moving away from the red dead zone. And I'd like the histogram to be above the black line. So that's my first opportunity there. I would have considered getting in at that point until I looked down at the water atta, and then that would have put me off completely. So I would have waited until this moment. But as you can see, price is moving away from the red trend line, and it's actually moving towards the 200, the black line, which is a 200 moving average. Now, I always stay clear of getting into a trade when we're so close to the 200, because price does have a habit of bouncing off the 200 moving average, and you can see it didn't quite make it to the 200. It went back up again, bounced off the green trend line, and then it started to make its way down. So here I begin to get interested because the price has come again below the red trend line, below the green trend line, and now below the 200 moving average. I like a gap between the 200 and the candle, so I probably wouldn't have been tempted to get in at that point. I'm noticing that we're in a wave down, and we've also got red PSARs pushing price down. So here is when I'm starting to get interested. Now let's have a look down at the water atta. The water atta is telling me that on that candle, that one there, we were in a good position to get in. my personal, I mean, that would have been fine to get in if you'd got in for a sell. Personally, I would have waited until price moved away. The candle moved away from the black line, and I'd be thinking about um, considering the black line on the water atta. I'm looking for something like that, where the black line is definitely moving away from the red line, and the histogram is above the black line. That's an ideal situation for me. However, like I said, I probably wouldn't have got in anyway because of the news at 8:15, and that was the 8:14 candle. So I'm a fairly cautious trader. I probably wouldn't have got in. I would have waited until that news had been and gone. However, if you were brave and you got in on that candle, I've marked it up as halfway through the candle. I've put a stop loss of 3 pips, which we find is sufficient on this particular pair. And this candle is also an engulfing candle, a bear engulfing candle. So we've got 3 pips stop loss, and we've got up down to the blue line, we've got 6 pips. But I'll just move that back up there so you can see it. My mouse go. There we go. So we're looking at risk to reward of just over 1 to 2 there. However, you could have taken your 2% when it reached that point there. If you've been really brave, bear in mind the news, you might have got as much as 1 to 10 out of that trade. Now I'm just looking at the time, so I'm not going to have time at the minute to look at any more pairs, but I will do it later if we get a chance. It's now 1/4 past, so I need to look at this afternoon's trading situation. So I'm going to take off those indicators for the time being. I'm going to take off the water atta, and I'm going to reset that chart. I'm going to right click on there, reset the chart, and let's have a look at what's going on currently. So that's the situation we just looked at. There was a very steep drop in price. Personally, I wouldn't have been in that trade because there was a lot of red flag news, and even though price did go down substantially, I couldn't predict whether price was going to go down or whether it was going to go up. And in that situation, I normally steer clear. So let's have a look at this, make this a little bit bigger, and hide that. So I'm really looking at this candle here, the 1 o'clock candle, which has got quite a long wick on the top of it. And I'm looking at the top of the wick, and I'm looking left from the top of that wick, and I'm noticing that that candle there is actually very slightly higher than the 1 o'clock candle. So if I turn on the magnet tool and I drag this trend line across to that candle there, and then just extend this trend line to about 6 o'clock UK time and get it to touch the top of the wick. So just to recap on that, looking at the top of the wick on the 1 o'clock candle and looking left for a higher candle, that's the nearest higher candle, and therefore we've now got our buy trend line in position. We do the same looking at the bottom of the 1 o'clock. If you look left from there, I'm looking for the nearest lower candle, and it happens to be the very next candle. So using the magnet tool again, I snap that into position, and I try to get this trend line to pass through the middle. So I'm imagining that there was, if there was a wick on the bottom of that candle, I'm trying to get it passed through that point there. So I'm just going to position this. There, I think that's in position. So we've now got one pair accurately marked up. But before we drop down to the 2-minute chart, I'm going to do the other 3 pairs. So same 1 o'clock candle, there is a wick at the top of the candle, and if I look left, I can see that that green candle there is slightly higher. Just need to drag that down. This at the bottom of the candle there. Now it's, I can see that the next candle is slightly lower. It's not massively lower, but it is actually lower. So I'm going to place that there. Now there is a tiny wick, so that makes life easy for me. You've just got to touch the bottom of that wick there, and that's in position. Do the same for the GBP pairs. So there's the 1 o'clock candle. I'm looking at the top of the 1 o'clock wick. I'm looking left. I think that one's about the same level. So I need to go to that one there. Don't know why the magnet tool isn't working. Let's try again. There we go. So that's the 1 o'clock candle. I need to get this trend line to touch the top of the wick on there. That's it. Looking at the bottom of the 1 o'clock candle, clearly the very next candle is lower. That's the nearest lower candle. And if I just mark this, move this so it touches the wick at the bottom of the 1 o'clock. There we go. And the last one is GBP card. So I'm looking at this indecision candle with a very tiny body and a long wick below and a slightly shorter wick above. So looking at the top of that wick and looking left, the next door candle is about the same. I'm going to place it on that one there. That's the nearest higher candle. Now looking at the bottom and looking left, that is obviously the nearest low. So we've got all 4 pairs almost marked up. Let's move that. There we go. So we've got the 1 o'clock candle. We're looking at the top and looking left, that's the nearest high. We're looking at the bottom, looking left, that's the nearest low. So I need to turn off the magnet tool. I need to put on my straightforward Forex indicator. I need to put my 513.62 clouds. And I need to show my water atta. And I'm going to drop down to the 2-minute chart. So on GBP CAD, you can see the green trend line. There's the crossover with the red trend line. So whilst price is in that wedge, I don't ever get involved in a trade in either direction. What I'm waiting for is price either to break above the green trend line, which it has, or below the red trend line. Now, it's actually both at the minute. It's both below the red trend line and above the green trend line. Not a good situation, because sometimes price will cling to one or other of these trend lines. So what I'm really looking for is, if we're thinking about a buy, I'm waiting for price to get not only above the green trend line, but also above the red trend line. I'm also waiting for it to be well clear of the 200 moving average. So it's going in the right direction. I'm in a wave up, have been for about half an hour, more than half an hour. We've been in a wave up. We've got green PSARs beneath the price, pushing price up. We've got green wave blocks pushing price up there. We've got looking at this cloud here. This is a pale red cloud. It's actually just changed color because the red trend line, sorry, the red moving average and the green moving average have just crossed over. So we were in a downward movement at that point, and at this point, where we started to get the red line above the green line, a bit more positive upward movement. So looking at the water atta for confirmation, we don't have the confirmation that we need on this candle or that candle. What we're looking for is this scenario where the histogram is a nice dark green and above the black line, and we're looking for the black line to be moving away from the red line. That's not the case right now. So the candles are looking good for a buy, but the water atta is keeping me out. I'm just going to keep my eye on this. There we go. We've now got what we had momentarily, and again, we've got the black line pointing away. So I'm going to mark this up. That's a potential entry. And if I was going to put a long position on that, and get in where price is now, and we're on GBP CAD, so I need about 5 pips stop loss. So if I look at where my stop loss should be, there's a green horizontal line which marking me, that's giving me a potential stop loss. Now that would be about 10 pips. I'm comfortable with that. I can live with 10. If we get to more than 10 pips stop loss, I get a bit nervous. Now, the sanity check that I do is I pull this up to where we've got a risk to reward of 1 to 2. So I'm looking at that that figure there, 1.77. I want to increase that to 2. And there we go. We've got, I'll just move it again. That's 1.99. I'll just move it a little bit. There we go. So that's 1 to 2. So basically, I'm needing price to get up to that point there for me to make a gain of 2% on my account. So one of the things I can do to see if that's a good trade to be in is I'll go to, I'll just mark that level first of all. I'll put a line on that level, and then I'm going to go to the 15-minute chart, and I'm going to look left and see if there's any reason for price to go there. Now, that's the point I'm looking at. And I've got another indicator which shows me imbalance. So that candle there was entirely in balance. I just moved those out of the way. That candle, that candle, and that candle. So in other words, there is potential for movement. There's some imbalance there. Look, this is where price is now. There's some imbalance. When it gets above that, if you look left, there's imbalance above that red wick there. So from that point, there's more imbalance to be taken out, to be mitigated is the correct word. And there's even more imbalance above my blue line. So that would tell me that it's reasonable to assume that price may go up there. We don't know that for a fact, but it's a reasonable trade to take. What we need to also bear in mind is that it's now 27 minutes past 1, and there was some 1:30 news on the Canadian dollar. I'm just going to show that again. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Forex. Actually, there we go. So 1:30 Canadian dollar, and on the other news source, the Canadian dollar was high. They regarded it as high impact. So that would actually make the decision for me not to get in just now. But I've marked it up, and we'll see what happened. Now, assuming it's assuming that the news is not good for the Canadian dollar, I would expect the value of the British pound to increase. If it's good news for the Canadian dollar, I would expect that price to go downwards. So we'll leave that. We'll just wait and see what happens. The reason I went through that was to go through my thought process. So Canadian dollar, I want to avoid because of the news, and because the Canadian dollar is strongly linked to the US dollar, I need to, personally, I want to avoid being in a trade at 130. So we'll just go through the pairs, the other pairs, and see if we can spot any opportunities. So GBP US, first thing I see is that prices are just trying to break above the green trend line, but it's hitting the 200 moving average and it's rejecting off the 200 moving average. So we are potentially looking for buys because price is above the green trend line. However, it's also below the red trend line. So price could, well, if it continues up, it may well either stick to the red trend line, respecting that trend line, or it may reject and bounce off and come back down again. So I'm not happy getting in for a buy there. We do have a wave up, and we have now got green piece half pushing price up. The price is getting stuck at that 200 moving average, and looking for confirmation with the water at it, we're not getting it. The black line is below the red line. It needs to be above and moving away. So we'll leave that for now because price might make a move above the 200 moving average, depending on the news, which is happening right now. So I'm going to go back to the Canadian dollar. Right, so obviously that was good news for the Canadian dollar because price, the value of the British pound against the Canadian dollar has just gone down. Let's have a look at the sequence and see what the news was. So here we are. Going to move out the way. So previously minus 0.8, they were expecting it at plus 0.5. It was actually plus 1.8. So good news for the Canadian dollar. That was exactly what was expected. And these two lesser important news items were worse than expected. But that was the big news. That was what pushed price down. So GBP card prices come back down. It's gone down to the 200 moving average and rejected it. It's now starting to go back up again slightly. So the news affected the Canadian dollar positively. So we need to wait until this news settles and then see whether price continues on its way up or whether that news has got a longer term effect. I'm going to go through the other pairs. Euro US, so this doesn't involve the Canadian dollar, so there shouldn't have been as much impact, and sure enough there wasn't as much impact. That's the 130 news. There was a bit of a dip in the US dollar. It was going up and then it reached or just went past the 200 moving average. Then because of the news, it started to go in the opposite direction. So there's nothing to be done there. We've got the green trend line, the red trend line, and the black 200 moving average all condensed in that tight little area. I want to see price get away either in a downward direction or in an upward direction. So I need to make very clear of that red trend line. If it's going south, if it's going to go north, I want it to be clear not only of the green trend line, but also clear of the 200 moving average. So nothing happening in a minute. This is telling me to keep out anyway, because the black line is above the red line, but it's not moving away. It's flatlining, and the histogram is way down here. It needs to be up above the black line. So I'm not going to get involved there. Now, Eurocard, that was the 130 news. So price was heading upwards, and then the news hit and it started to come back down. Once again, it's gone as far down as the 200 moving average, and then it's now trying to get back up again. There's a long wick, so it came down and then went back up, and then on this candle it came down and went back up. We've now got a green candle on this one, so it looks as if it is trying to recover the loss that it incurred on that news. The other reason that I'm thinking we might be in a buy situation is we've got a wave up signal. We've got a green cloud, so the red moving average has crossed over the green moving average. We've now got a green cloud, and we've also got green wave blocks. We've also got green PSARs pushing price up. But the water atta is warning me that there isn't sufficient volume. The sellers are backing off a little, sorry, the buyers are backing off a little bit, and now isn't the time to get in. In fact, we've now got a red histogram, but it's not strong enough. So nothing happening on that pair. That's very similar, was going up, got the 1 o'clock news, started to come back down again. May recover because there was a quite strong upward trend at that point. Then it went sideways, then it started to go up, and then the news brought it back down again. But again, the water atta would keep me out. I need the black line to be above the red line. I need it to be pointing away from the red line, and I need the histogram to be above the black line. So nothing doing there. I'm going on to the last pair. Now, all four pairs have reacted to the news very similarly. They were going up, the news hit. There's what could just be a temporary pullback, but I would wait until things settle down before I think about getting in for the trade. And don't forget, we've got other news coming along. If I look at Forex Factory, we've got 2:45 and 3 p.m. So there's still potential for some big moves. And if I go back to GBP CAD, okay, so price has come all the way back down to the 200 moving average. It looks like it's going to also go through the green trend line. If it does, we've got a red dashed line here, and that indicates the break of structure point. So for price to actually be in a downward trend, it would need to go below that point there. So we're still currently in an upward trend. But if it breaks past that red dash line, we then start to be in a downward trend. So it's now 7 minutes after the news, so things should start to settle down. I'm not seeing any opportunities just yet, so I'm going to go back through the pairs and then think about my plan of attack for this afternoon. That blue line there is probably from previous trade that I was looking at. Yeah, Euro, US. Okay, so yeah, that was my looking at that trade this morning. That was my 2% mark. So I'm going to take that off for now. Okay, so I'm back on the 2 minute chart and I'm looking for a positive move. And I'm not seeing it. I've got the water at that's looking reasonable. The black line is moving away from the red line. And the histogram is very slightly above the black line. So that's looking promising. Looking at the actual price situation, price is struggling to get past the 200 moving average. It is above the green trend line, but not sufficiently for me to be interested just yet. Need to keep an eye on that. Okay, so once again, my eye is going down here. It isn't quite ready yet for a buy. Everything is green, but we're not ready to buy yet. We've come above the green trend line. We've come above the 200 black moving average. We've got a green cloud for the that's the 13 moving average. That's the 62 moving average. So there is an upward trend. We've got green pre-SAR pushing price up. We're in a wave up. I would want to see price make a bit of a stronger move, and that would be confirmed down here. I would like to see the histogram above the black line. The black line is moving away from the red line, but there's insufficient volume for it to be of interest. We've got a bit of sideways movement here. We had an up, we had a down, and then we've gone sideways. Yeah, something similar there. It's rejected off the 200, the black line. We've now got a wave down on prices. It was already below the red trend line. It's now below the green trend line. However, we've got a green cloud because the red 200, the red 13 moving average is still above the 62, the green moving average. When they cross over, that cloud will become a red cloud and we might be in a much stronger sell mode. The water atta would tell me to keep out because the black line's below the red line. But I'm now starting to think, rather than sit and watch these very slow moving pairs, I might need to set some alerts. So I'm going to go back through the pairs and tell you how I'm going to set up my alerts for this afternoon. We've got, I'm going to start at the top, Euro US. Now we seem to be sort of sticking, we've got a sticking point here. We've got a green trend line and a red trend line and a black 200 moving average all bunched up together, and price is bouncing off those. It's moving sideways, just bouncing off. So I want to set an alert. Don't want to have to sit and watch the charts all afternoon. I want to know when price gets above this red trend line. If we're going to get in for a buy, I want price to get above that red trend line. If we're going to get in for a sell, I would want price to be below that red dash line there because that's the vertical structure. So I can put a parallel channel on, but I'm sort of going to have to keep an eye on it because as price comes over to the right, that red trend line is moving away from price. So we need a sort of an increasing channel on that level there. So I really want I'm going to put a parallel channel on, but this isn't actually completely going to do the job. But I'll put it up there because I want it. I want price to be moving away from the black 200, and I want it to be moving away from the red trend line. So if I put it in position there, then I'm going to have to come and adjust that, the top of that, and right, drag that down there. I want it to be below that point there. So this is just a temporary alert. So if I click on that alarm clock and ask it to let me know when price exits the channel once per bar and create, and you should see the icon there. There's an alarm icon. But I'm going to have to adjust this as time goes by. But the bottom end of the channel is about right. It needs to come below that red dashed line. And then I don't jump in when I get the alert. I come back and I reanalyze the situation, but at least I can walk away from the screen until I get an alert. You can see prices just moving sideways. So long as it's moving in that channel, I'm really not interested. And in fact, I need to sort of extend that channel upwards as time goes by. But I've got an alert, so I can walk away. Euro card. Now, if I was going to get in for a sell, I would want price to come below the red trend line, but I'd also want it to get below that line there. So I can see my the bottom of my channel is sort of that area there. Top of my channel, well, there's the green trend line. I need to be above that. I also need to be above that 200 moving average. So basically what I'm looking at is either setting an alert to the top of that high there, or if I was going to be more conservative, I would want it to get above that high there. But for now, I'll just set it on the lower one. So I want it to go past where it reversed there. And I need to plug that down below that red dash line. And once again, if I click on that point there, I'll get an alarm alert, exit the channel once per bar, create. Okay, now, again, once if price comes out the top of my channel, I'm going to come back and I'm going to reanalyze. I'm certainly not interested in getting in whilst these volumes are so low. I want the histogram to be above the black line, and I want the black line to continue moving away from the red line. But as I say, I just want an alert when it makes a move. I'm also concerned about this because it may go up as far as that and then come back down again. So at least I don't have to sit and watch. And so if we're going to get in for a sell because we're in a wave down and we've got we are definitely below the red trend line and below the green and below the black line. So we're looking more likely to be in a sell on this pair. We've come down clear of the red and the green and the black. So what we're waiting for really is for this red moving average to cross over the green moving average, in which case the cloud will become a red cloud rather than a green cloud. We've already got the red wave blocks pushing price down or indicating momentum, downward momentum. We've already got a wave down. We've already got red piece half pushing price down. So I'm going to put my channel, doesn't need to be too far below where it is now because I'm literally just waiting for this scenario. I'm also waiting for this to get into my favor. But if I was going to set, there's an alert, so I'm going to have a look at that. So um, I need price to get above that green line there for a buy. Which I'll get rid of that and start again. Parallel channel. You need price to get above that line there. And if I'm going to get into a sell, certainly needed to go below where it was just there. But I'd need to come back and reanalyze once I get the alert. So GBP USD exiting the channel once per bar clear. So again, price is sort of moving sideways. I need it to make a strong move upwards or a strong move downwards. And then I'll come back and reanalyze. GBP card. I'm going to leave that on because that was shaping up a potential buy, but then I realised that we were very close to the news, and the 130 news had an adverse effect on that trade. So I wouldn't have been in that trade because of the news, but it might well, once it's recovered from the effect of the news, it might well continue up in that direction. So I'll leave it. I'll leave that on for reference later. If I'm gonna get in for a buy, I need a number of things to happen. I need the wave down to become a wave up. I need the red PSARs to become green PSARs and below the price. So there's some way to go yet before I'm interested in a buy. And if I'm interested in a sell, I need price to get below that break of structure indication there. So let's place that. I really want price certainly to be above that high there. And if I put that there, get that horizontal. And then drag it down. I need to be below that. So there's alert, exit the channel once per bar, create. Now, what was that alert that we just had? Then can go and have a look. So they were both on Euro card. Let's have a look at Euro card. Right. So we had two alerts, and there's a little bit of a glitch on this alert. I asked for an alert when price moved outside my channel, when it exited the channel. So I got that first alert, and then I got a second alert when it started to creep back in again. So that's a bit of an anomaly with that setting, but it will definitely give you a signal when price goes outside the box. But it didn't, when I said before, I get the alert, I come back and analyze it. Well, I can see immediately that it's now returning inside the box. I would probably have been better putting the top of that channel there because it might bounce off that point again, but I'll bear that in mind. So I've set 4 alerts. That means I don't have to sit and watch. You can ask TradingView to send those alerts to your mobile phone, and you'll get the alert on your phone when the alert goes off. So I'm going to leave it at that. Except I'm just going to look at one additional factor. If I just drag these down, what's happened to my something weird happened there. Okay, got it back. Right, so that's good. I've got here this got a couple more alerts. I'll go and look at those in a second. Um, so I've got here a yellow shaded area, which is what I call my field of play, and I've got yesterday's POC mark there, and that is a target. So if price does get into my field of play, I'll be considering taking a buy up towards my yesterday's PLC, but that's quite a long way off. But it is something I'm going to bear in mind. I'll come back to those because if price does decide to go up, it has got a reason to go up there because there's a lot of imbalance. There's imbalance there. If I put the imbalance indicator on, you'll see. There we go. So above where price is now, there's a lot of imbalance, and it's got to be mitigated at some point. The problem is I don't know when. Could be next week, could be next year, I don't know. But if it does decide to go in an upward direction, there's a potential, well, all of this imbalance is a potential target. But if it gets up there, then that is also a potential target. So in an upward direction, we've got a number of targets. I'm just going to look below where price is, and there's just wondering what that indication is there. We need to go onto a bigger time frame. I'll go up to the 1 hour time frame and just follow that. There, let's put the SVP on the session volume profile. No, for some reason I've got an indication there, but there's nothing to warrant that. So I'll just take that. Go back to 15 minutes. I'll just take that off. Didn't seem to refer to anything. And if I go back down to 2 minutes, if I take off these indicators, that's SVP and imbalance. And then if I right click and reset that chart, there we go. Okay, so Euro US is still within my channel, so I'm not really not interested. Don't know what's going on with my mouse, but so it's bouncing around within my channel. Euro card is broken out of my channel. Therefore, it's also gone past my sort of my second worry, which was that level there. It's going up. This is not quite right for me. I want that black line to be pointing away from the red line, and I want the histogram to be above that black line, but it is shaping up for a buy. And if I look, once again, we've got a field of play up there, and we've got an outstanding point of control within that field of play. There we go. So if it gets in the field of play, there's a potential target up there. If it comes down, I cannot see any targets if price comes down. So my favorite move would be a move upwards. Right, now we get into a position where this might be worth looking at for a buy. And let's see on that candle there. No, the black line pointing in the wrong direction. It needs to point upwards. if I was trading this live, I would wait for that black line to move point until it was pointing upwards and away from the red line. I wouldn't be tempted right now to get in for a buy. That's the only thing that's holding me back. Price has broken out on the channel. We're in a wave up. Got a green wave. We've got green PSRs. We've got green wave blocks. Everything's saying buy, apart from the water atta. So we'll come back and watch that. Really just waiting for that black line to change direction and start pointing upwards. GBP USD. It did pop its head out of the channel, but it's then starting to go back down again. And we are very close to the 200 moving average. We're very close to the green trend line. So I want a bit of a stronger move. However, we've got a wave up recently. We've got green PSARs pushing price up. We're in a green cloud situation. And that's almost, but not quite ready. I need the black line to be above the red line, which it is. I need it to be pointing upwards, which it is very slightly. But the color of the histogram isn't strong enough for me. I want it to be a dark green, and I want a bit more positive movement upwards. Keep an eye on that. GBP card. And that's why, if you look at that where price broke out of my channel and then rejected off my red trend line, that is a good example of not jumping in too early. You could have jumped in on that candle there because the water atta was telling me everything was okay. The wave up was okay. We're getting lots of alerts, but it's respecting that red trend line. So it may well continue to respect it. I really need price. Remember I said, I'm not sure if it was this pair or not, but I said I would need to keep moving my channel to take that red trend line into consideration. So not going to get in there until it gets above that red trend line, because it might just keep on bouncing from red down to black or down to green. I don't know, but I'm not going to risk it right now. So one last look at all four pairs and I'm going to call it a day. Right, so we've now got on this pair, we're just touching the green, the red trend line. We need it to break above the red trend line. We also need the water atta. We need the black line to point upwards and away from the red line. So this is reflecting what's actually going on. It's bouncing off the red trend line. Not a good time to get in. It might well come down and hit the green trend line and then go back up again. I don't know, but it hasn't made a positive move upwards yet. Water atta is telling me to keep out. Euro card. Okay, so a bit more positive. We've broken outside the channel. We're continuing to go. We've got above that high there. You can see that candles are very wicky, so it's a lot of indecision going on. We are in a wave up. We've got a green cloud. We've got green PSARs pushing price up, but this is telling me to keep out. We're getting a lot of alerts. Basically, that's telling me that price has popped its head out of my channel and then it's gone back into my channel. So of no interest. So basically, we need a strong move. Yeah. Found it's rejected off the trend line. It's respecting that trend line. And now it's coming down, may well go all the way down to the black 200 or might go all the way down to the green trend line. The minute the water atta is keeping it safe. So I think I've said everything I need to, or everything I can say about these four pairs this afternoon. Bear in mind that we do have some more news, and you need to be wary at 2:45 and 3 p.m. this afternoon. But apart from that, I'm going to say thank you very much for jumping on. I shall be back again on Tuesday at the same time. Thanks now. Bye.